The first disaster of the day came when floodwaters caused a wall at the city's water treatment plant to buckle. A small fire erupted and the plant is now closed. Word of the shutdown sent frantic residents scurrying to the water tanks with their empty jugs. What was your reaction when you heard the news?
Scared.
Make it over here pretty quick?
Sure did. Just got off work and I'm here.
Figured you'd stock up?
Try to get a little ahead of it. I don't know how you've managed to stay ahead of it in conditions like this.
Conditions made worse when river water backed up through the city's sewer lines, putting much more of the downtown business district underwater. National Guardsmen and police have sealed off many blocks to keep sightseers away from potential danger.
What's the fear here? We're going to keep you alive.
Building may collapse. Someone may wander down there and the water may sweep them away. There's a lot of concerns for safety.
For out-of-town tourists who come to Alton to shop for antiques, today's events were a chance to see history in the making. What do you think of this?
Absolutely amazing. It's been on the news every night there, but I just can't believe the destruction. It is unreal.
Is seeing believing?
Yes, yes.
Seeing is also believing for these National Guardsmen and volunteers. Just south of downtown, they work frantically to build a backup levee, a second line of defense for businesses in this block. Kind of an insurance policy for the rest of Alton?
That's correct. For this part of Alton, anyway.
Now, some people will be allowed back into that restricted area, that 14 square block restricted area, to check on their businesses.
Sky 2 arrives on the scene about 9:15 a.m., just after the levee explodes on the Illinois side of the Mississippi, some 2 miles south of the Jefferson Barracks Bridge. At that point, buildings on this farm stand tall, surrounded by green fields. 11 minutes later, the raging Mississippi was beginning to take its toll, cutting a wide swath through what only minutes ago was a prosperous-looking farm. In about an hour, the 2-story farmhouse is nowhere to be seen. These incredible pictures document the river's strength. Grain silos lie crumpled like wadded pieces of tin foil. All that can be seen of a large shed is the roof. If anyone hoped to save anything here, those hopes have been washed away in a torrent of Mississippi floodwater. Even towering trees cannot withstand the river's wrath. This large hardwood is uprooted and quickly swept away as the mighty river reclaims her floodplain. Sky 2 climbs higher for a final look. In less than 90 minutes, this Monroe County farm vanishes, one more victim of the worst natural disaster to hit the Midwest in generations. Catherine Kiefer, 2 News Tonight.
Overrun by the cold, rushing river that cut a path in the levee.
If we'd had 3 truckloads of sandbags a little earlier, we could have held that spot.
Instead, what took 3 generations to build and nourish is washed away in just minutes.
I was born and raised there. My folks lived there, and my grandparents had raised a family there also.
He got his livestock and other possessions out in the past couple of weeks, but the heart of this operation is destroyed.
It's going to take us several years to get about back to where we were. We don't know what this land's going to look like down there after this flood, what it's going to take to clean it up and get it back into production.
Gumersheimer tells me he reluctantly prepared for this day and holds no grudges towards the river his family knows so well, the river that showed no mercy.
It reclaimed its valley this morning. No.
Gumersheimer's neighbor Tom Garlib suffered a similar loss. The farmland he shared with his wife has been consumed.
I tell you, farming is just a gamble all the way through. If it's not the river, it could have been dozens of other things. I mean, it's just the way it is.
What Gumersheimer and Garlib now know is that they have a lot of friends they can lean on. Friends who have made a tough situation much easier to deal with. And they want to salute those people.
I just don't know what to say to these people, except thanks.
In Columbia, Illinois, Walter Richards, 2 News Tonight.
The flood of '93 has now forced more than 500 families from their homes.
Volunteers and residents whistle with the pump pipe in an effort to keep the vault area dry. The vault is located in the basement.
Well, we're still on top of it. We haven't lost any ground. All of our pumps are working, and we got adequate staffing here to man the pumps. And
they brought all the boots in.
Brought all the boots in. We just got a new supply of boots because the water in certain areas is 2 or 3 or 4 inches deep.
That last gentleman, Jesse Hopkins, the president of Mercantile Bank, they say their workers will continue to try and pump the water out and keep the basement and the vault area dry throughout the night. Now back to the water situation. Again, the water plant submerged with water this evening. Residents, though, can get water at a number of different distribution sites around the area. Here's a look at them. At Alton Square Mall, they can go there. Also to Central Hardware. Those are both located on Homer Adams Parkway. Also, you can go to the SIUE Dental School parking lot. That's at Worden and Leverett. And there is a drive-through service for the senior citizens at Rock Springs Park. Joining me now is Mayor Robert Taus, the mayor of the city of Alton. Mayor Taus, what are you expecting tomorrow when you're expecting the crest another foot higher?
We expect the water to continue to rise into the businesses. We're going to take a good look at it to see what we might do, but we're not going to do anything until it starts to recede, and then we'll start pumping again.
You had talked with me earlier, and you said how the levee had held, that the work of the volunteers did not fail, and that it was a tough way to lose this battle. You mentioned something interesting about what more pumps might have done. Why don't you share that with us again?
Well, my public works director and I believe that the 4 12-inch pumps that are going to arrive tomorrow morning would have made the difference. If we just had them this morning, we'd have kept it out.
And you talked about how getting through the red tape is what may have held them up for a while.
It's difficult getting through all of the different channels and the different organizations, and people ask why, and sometimes that's what causes the delay.
You also talked about the fact that we're expecting this to crest another foot, and the water continues to rise tonight, but already you're looking ahead as to what will be done once the water recedes. What is that?
We're going to do a massive cleanup, and then we'll bring our engineers in to see what needs to be done to rebuild it. We're going to peel it back and see what's under there and put it back together, and maybe this time we'll build it to withstand pressures.
Mayor Robert Taus, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
So the Mayor Taus told folks at a news conference earlier that, in fact, when the water recedes, the workers will rip up the sidewalks, rip up the streets to determine exactly how all of the water passed beneath the levee. They say they might find tunnels and who knows what else down there. That's why the water kind of got beneath the levee, and that's why the situation is what it is tonight. Larry and Julius?
All right, Evan Forrester reporting live from Alton, Illinois.
In the city, the water raced past dozens of houses and now laps along the town's main street. One of the few untouched, a party boat drifts along, but clearly without a party on board. In Bellefontaine Neighbors, what a difference a few blocks make. Where there's a flood wall, things are dry. Just a block away, more than a dozen homes that were dry Friday are now underwater. Even the third line of sandbags couldn't keep the Marias neighborhood safe. Along the riverfront, another mixed bag. The railroad tracks are completely underwater. The commercial boats are cut off from tourist trade, but the tourists are there to gawk at the river, and the arch ground looks dry at this point. The thing that has all of us worried now is what's next. What's already happened is devastating, but at least people are pulling together to help. Catherine Kiefer, 2 News Tonight.
Well, it may be hard to believe, but authorities in Grafton tell me tonight that their water plant is holding on. So far, there's been no interruption in service.
The flood of '93 will go down in history as one of the worst local disasters in this century. Throughout it all, the 2 News team, the home team, has been there to show you the dramatic stories. To document this flood, the 2 News team is producing a chronological videotape. To get yours, send a $20 check or money order to Floodwatch 93 Video, 5915 Berthold, St. Louis 63110. All profits go to the American Red Cross Disaster Relief.
Some advice which may make your trip more bearable. The Missouri Highway and Transportation Department has closed 4 major bridges. The McKinley Bridge, shown here, was shut down on Friday. And the Daniel Boone Bridge on Interstate 40 is closed too. Its south approach flooded out. The Lewis and Clark bridges are also closed. That means hundreds of thousands of vehicles will be forced to find alternate routes.
The most important advice I can give would be to try to find someone to share a ride with. Carpool if at all possible tomorrow.
This is a list of bridges that remain open. If you live in the Alton, Illinois area, your only access to St. Louis will be over Route 270 and the Chain of Rocks Bridge. If you live in St. Charles, I-70 and the Blanchette and Discovery bridges are the only ways to get to work in St. Louis. Residents in the Columbia and Dupont, Illinois area can take 255 over the Jefferson Barracks Bridge. Your best route may be the bus or new Metrolink. Bi-State Bus is adding 4 morning trips and 4 afternoon trips to and from the North Handley Metrolink station and Mid-Rivers Park and Ride lot. Morning departures from the Mid-Rivers.
Together.
You'll go back.
I intend to continue farming. I don't know where.
Just a few hours after Virgil Gumensheimer stood on the levee watching his farm wash away, he patiently answered my questions.
I really don't know how to put it in words. Just that kind of a helpless feeling to stand there and watch one piece after another topple.
When these pictures were taken a few weeks ago, no one thought they would be the last ones. He will farm again, but not here.
I don't think there'll be anything to go back to there. I expect just to see a big hole.
Tom Garlib was standing with Virgil on the levee when it went washing away his home, too.
I'm pretty much a realist and, well, pretty much accepted it already and just have to pick up the pieces when the water goes down. That'll be the killer, is the wait. Wait and, yeah, if the river's ripped all the way to the bottom, which it is, through the levee, I can't imagine we're going to be in there any sooner than a month or two.
Both farmers say they'll start over, but tonight they're just not sure how.
Brought the disaster right into her home.
The farm that you're seeing right in front of that used to be the Billy Kettler farm. It's owned by Davis's right now, and that's completely under. If you look to the very next one down the road to the south, which the road's no longer there, but
to the south.
There's a small one and a large one that are my parents' farms, and they also farm some of the land. Yeah, that's my mom and dad's house, and that's their shed and everything. We've been fighting it for weeks and weeks. My dad's been out on the levee. He's one of the levee commissioners, and he's been out there day and night. And we moved everything upstairs. That's why that's kind of scary to see that.
I can hear your voice beginning to break. You can see how high it is. The structure so far appears to be holding at least with the force right now.
Right. A lot of the things are up in the upstairs, and everything in the downstairs we moved out to every...
Supply has been shut down.
And tonight, city officials are scrambling to come up with a solution there. News Channel 5's Dan Gray is live in Alton with the latest there. Dan.
Karen and Rick, we're at one of 13 water distribution sites where the people of Alton and surrounding areas are bringing their own containers, filling up with water from these large tanks behind me. After a meeting of emergency officials tonight, it was announced that it could be up to another 2 weeks before the water treatment plant is back online. It was the floodwaters earlier this afternoon that shut down the Illinois American Water Company plant. Apparently what happened was the levee held along the Mississippi River, but apparently what happened, the floodwaters just got into the sewer system. It backed up into the sewers, flooding much of downtown Alton and the water treatment plant. So that brought more and more people out to the water distribution sites, 13 of them in and around Alton, in Jersey County, in other areas throughout this area, all the water district that's here. And now the plan is for emergency officials to seek other sources of water, at least for the next 2 weeks. Joining me now is the Director of Illinois Emergency Management, John Plunk. John, where are you going to be looking for extra water for at least the next couple of weeks?
Well, we've had this plan in effect for about a week now already. For the past week, it's been a convenience to customers, and now tonight our worst fears have come true, and it's a necessity. We've made arrangements with a number of the local communities, dairies, a number of suppliers of potable water, and they've been bringing a steady stream of tankers in here. We're staging them out of here, and then we're in communication with all of the other bulk sites, and we're dispatching out there as they're needed.
What about emergency operations and getting water to them? Fire departments, hospitals, those kinds of places?
The hospitals, actually, we began bringing bottled water into them about 2 weeks ago when the boil water was first considered as precaution. And so that is continuing. I think they're putting something like 60,000 gallons a day in there. In addition to that, we're also supplying water for their cooling systems so that they can keep their air conditioners running and that type of thing. As far as fire protection, the chief of police and the fire chief tell me that they've made adequate arrangements. They don't think there's going to be any problem at all. Response times for the fire department will not decrease. And if they need larger than usual quantities of water, they've made some arrangements to take care of that. So they feel like that way they're in pretty good shape.
Okay. And in the meantime, the word is conserve for many of these residents, right?
Well, I think that's right. And we've seen a steady stream of people come through today, but there's been no long lines. I think the people of Alton are going to settle into a kind of a routine about this. They'll get very creative and and be able to conserve the water. We'll have plenty for everyone. It's open 24 hours a day down here. There's no limit. Please be careful of the containers that you bring down. We're seeing people bring garbage cans down and things like that. I don't know what they're going to do with that water, but I hope they're not drinking out of it. We've got literature down here you can pick up at any one of the bulk sites on how to clean those containers, and we do ask that people bring their own container. We do have some containers that are being shipped in tomorrow, another about 17,000, and I think we've already put out something like 44,000.
All right. John Plunk, thank you very much. John is director of the Illinois Emergency Management Agency, been on the scene here ever since the boil order started a couple of weeks ago, and this water distribution started last week, and now it will continue for at least another couple of weeks. 13 water distribution sites in and around the Alton area and in Jersey County. Also, there may be more opened, we're told, tomorrow in the city of Alton. So for now, it's conserve and use the water wisely. We're told that even flushing a toilet only twice a day, they're suggesting at this point. If you have running water coming through your system, make sure you boil it before you use it. Many people said they were still having some water within their pipes and in their homes, and they were able to use it up until tonight. But of course, that may run out, and they all may be dry within the next couple of weeks. So we'll keep on top of this for you. It's going to be a developing story. I'm Dan Gray, News Channel 5 in Alton. Back to you, Karen and Rick.
Surrounding the historical town are holding, but again, a desperate plea for sandbaggers is going out tonight. If you can help, you are urged to report to the St. Genevieve.
Just about 45 feet. Forecast crest, again, as you can see, negligible in Herman because the river is dropping. In St. Charles, 39 feet. Grafton, 37.8. And tomorrow in Arnold, they're telling us that the...
It appears that there'll be no access to that, but we don't have any additional confirmation on that. The main concern at this very moment is the Burger King floating restaurant breaking loose, slamming into the Poplar Street Bridge. I'm waiting momentarily to hear if we have Jet Copter 4 on the site. We have, of course, been watching primarily the propane tanks in South St. Louis, where there have been some sparks in that area earlier tonight, igniting possibly propane fumes, but they were quickly extinguished, and that has been a very big concern for the River des Peres Street Bridge. I'm trying to orient myself once we have a little wider shot and get a better idea of where the boat is from this location. You can see the Poplar Street Bridge is closed down, however. I would have to assume that we're primarily looking at the east-westbound lanes of the Poplar Street Bridge, since that would be on the north side, and that's exactly where the boat would have hit the abutments. As we come around, you can see the arch. You can see the Gateway Arch. That's correct. You know, as I'm looking at this, we're looking at scenes that appears now along the riverfront itself, not on the Poplar Street Bridge. I'm trying to see if that's true. Julius, come up here. Would you agree as we're looking at this, if this is we're going to have to have word from the helicopter.
They are actually moving into place right now, and
they still seem at this point to be around the base of the arch itself. Right. Bridge, we are told, as you're looking at this live picture, this is a tow boat that's been brought in. As you can see, the searchlight is trying to also spot what is, we're going to have to get the camera back up to that location. We're going to have to raise the camera, but as you were seeing there briefly, the tow boat is running its spotlight over the area, trying to figure out exactly where each boat is broken loose. Now, we are being told that the Burger King restaurant, floating restaurant, did indeed lodge up under the Poplar Street Bridge. The minesweeper that it was either attached to also or had its own attachments, and it was also broken free. It is also moving into the Poplar Street Bridge if it's not already under it. We did see briefly what appeared to be a towboat trying to grab the minesweeper and back it away from the Poplar Street Bridge. Now, we told you earlier the Poplar Street Bridge had been shut down. Apparently, at this point, it has not, but that appears certainly it's going to be the next decision. Excuse me. Because the threat of this pressure along the bridge supports is not going to allow traffic to continue on a safe basis until they get the boats away from the bridge itself. Again, we know in the past there have been crew members, minimal crew members, working the Burger King restaurant and some of the other boats down on the riverfront, trying to make sure their equipment is up and running and being maintained best as possible, trying to use its spotlight, trying to get a better position and maybe latch onto one of the boats and move them away. We also have reports of The Coast Guard sending another boat in. Now you see more spotlights as additional tugs are being brought in, trying to latch on. From this perspective, I'm trying to get a better view for you exactly where we are from the Poplar Street Bridge, and Julius has more information here. Julius.
Yeah, Larry, we are told by some witnesses that there was some electrical type explosion before the boats broke loose from the pier. And we were told also, as you had mentioned, the minimal crews that are being kept on those boats were on there, but we do believe that the crews have gotten off the boat. The Burger King boat, quite a large vessel, is now wedged under the Poplar Street Bridge.
Now also, as we were seeing the pictures, if we can widen out again, you can get a perspective, I believe, from this vantage point. We might be to the east side of the river. I can't quite tell, Julius. I don't know if you can make it out. The spotlights of the tugs are about the only illumination we have. Obviously, the river is so dark in that region.
The minesweeper is called the Inaugural, and some of you may have been aboard that vessel. The helicopter pad, the minesweeper, and the Burger King have all broken loose because of the high water down there. There is this rodeo on the river right now.
They're trying to round them up the best they can. I see spotlights from at least 2 other tugs. As we pointed out, the Coast Guard is also moving in with additional help. Those are powerful searchlights. They use those, of course, when they're maneuvering barges, so they can spot a long ways away for river navigation. The problem is just trying to imagine how to safely attach and get hold of those so they don't become part of the event as it's happening. Those tug lights are...
and we think that there certainly had to be some jarring of that bridge when the Burger King lodged under it, but traffic is proceeding as normal there on the bridge.
We were talking about the minimal crews that sometimes been on board. You've been told basically that perhaps the crew is off, is that right?
We've been told at this time that the crew members who stay on as maintenance, general maintenance, while the boat is shut down, have gotten off, have been evacuated safely. We're being handed some more information right now.
Looks like the minesweeper and
the copter pad
yeah,
are still floating downstream at this point.
From the bridge. Now, I don't know if that means they've actually gotten through the bridge itself and are now south of the Poplar Street Bridge.
That's our understanding, that they have cleared the bridge and are under it. They're still afloat and on the move right now.
The Burger King restaurant, though, is apparently still lodged under the bridge.
Still lodged, and it will not be easily removed from some of the pictures we were able to see.
If we can move our helicopter as you're talking to them, while we can see now, this appears to be the minesweeper. I can't really get a good look at it. We can kind of pick up the Poplar Street Bridge so we can reorient ourselves.
It looks like a tugboat is just giving that minesweeper a little nudge to sort of keep it in place and keep it stable, keep it from floating free right now so that it won't do any more damage.
All right, we'll try to get the helicopter to pull out on the shot and give us a reference to where we are at this point from the Poplar Street Bridge to see if this activity is taking place to the south or still to the north. We'll have to pick up a shot of the bridge to get a better view of it. You know, as you had pointed out, U.S., we had 2 or 3 weeks ago while we were on the river broadcasting during one of our extended 6 o'clock reports, there had been a fire on board the Burger King at this time, and then you said tonight there had been a report of an explosion.
Right. There are some witnesses who were in the Adams Mark Hotel who report seeing an electrical-like explosion before those 3 elements broke loose: the Burger King restaurant, the minesweeper, and the helicopter pad.
Now, you know, the other thing about it is, too, is that could have been the power units breaking loose, because we do know they've had power sources hooked up. Again, trying to keep their refrigerants and things of this nature running. Despite not having traffic on board, they've been able to try to keep the units up running as part of the maintenance they must continue.
We apologize for the breakup of the pictures, but this is a very dark situation down there, and we don't have a great deal of illumination, and the breakup is going to occur from time to time, but we're going to still stay with this picture for as long as we can there.
It is difficult for the pilot to maneuver in here. Remember, of course, there are high-tension wires he has to be aware of. He or she, I'm not sure. We have both male and female pilots. I'm not sure who's piloting at this hour. So they're trying to keep their eye on that as well. And we do not want them to lose sight of that situation. We're trying to reach the pilot on the boat, I'm being told right now.
on one of the rescue boats. We may have a hookup shortly with one of the pilots on a rescue boat.
Now, we need to also communicate to our pilot. We need to communicate to our pilot and to our photographer to give us a reference point of the bridge so we can see the Poplar Street Bridge while we're seeing this, so we can tell which side we're on. This is the Burger King restaurant, from what I can tell as we're looking at Julius. It is hooked up to that tug. I assume he's trying to get him free. Or hold him steady. May just be trying to hold him steady. The current, at last report, I believe, was maybe 8 to 10, maybe 12 knots. That's, you know, anywhere from 10 to 15 miles an hour.
And it's hard to see, but it does look like there's been some damage to the top of that vessel, as it might have scooted under the bridge and knocked off some of the topmost parts.
And that's an excellent point, because that's why navigation in part has been closed down. Of course, one, to keep barges, traffic, and other boats from breaking the levees, but also because of the situation that the superstructures in some cases would reach too high, and with the water as high as it is, there is very little navigation room under the bridges themselves. That's why we're so concerned immediately when we knew it was headed for the Poplar Street Bridge, because which is going to give way first, Will? You'd assume at that point that the boat superstructure would give way to the power of the bridge, but with the pressure already on the bridge and the scourging possibly that's been going on around the substructure of the bridge, it's hard to say.
And the helicopter pad that we mentioned that was part of the loose stuff on the river right now, and the minesweeper, were last seen passing Arsenal Street on the river downtown. There are 3 commercial tows that are out involved in this river rodeo, also helping the Coast Guard on their attempts to capture these free-floating vessels. The next of the barges may be coming loose, we understand. The Park Service is also helping to monitor the situation right now. But as we have said, it appears that the helicopter pad and the minesweeper have floated the farthest down the river, last seen passing the Arsenal area of the river downstream. Very hard to tell what's going on that dark river. Of course, all of the electrical power was cut off as a safety factor down on the river. And with the Mississippi River now at more than 49 feet, with its rising again today, perhaps we will have to get this confirmed that the river's drop of a foot, then sudden rise again, might have had some effect on these vessels breaking loose. But as we have said, the Burger King floating restaurant, the helicopter pad, and the minesweeper inaugural all broke loose from their moorings just about 35 minutes ago. And we're trying to sort it all out in the dark from Jetcopter 4 with crews headed to the scene.
Julius, I don't know if I'm repeating some information you had on a moment ago. We're now being told that the St. Louis City Police are closing down the access to the Poplar Street Bridge on the St. Louis side, trying to close down traffic. We also are being told that the Coast Guard is now ordering more boats into the area to re-secure those boats that are still attached to the riverfront. That would be the Robert E. Lee, the Tourist Convention floating boat, and a couple others that are down that area.
And as we mentioned, we will have to confirm this, but perhaps the river's sudden drop of a foot or more today, and then its sudden rising again, uncouples some of the moorings down there. And we do understand there is a small fire aboard the Burger King that they're trying to contain.
That apparently is what we're watching, the Burger King at this point, and we're just not quite sure where it is referenced the Poplar Street Bridge. We're having difficulty communicating with the pilot at this time, and again, the pilot's doing the best job possible to get us in close safely, and certainly we want to stress it. We want them to be safe in the process. Perhaps he can drop down to water level a little bit better if it allows for him.
It would seem that the vessel we're seeing, which appears to be the Burger King floating restaurant, it seems to me that they do have it in tow and under control right now. So we are going to stay with this picture. And as you can see, we're able to get in a little closer now. And you can obviously see some damage to the uppermost part of that vessel structure right now. It has been crunched considerably as it went under the bridge there. John Hall is with me now. John, what do you see, and what can you help us sort out here?
Well, Jules, we just got off Highway 70, and I wanted to confirm for you that Metropolitan Police have cut off the entrance ramp to the Poplar Street Bridge from downtown. We also saw some police activity down by the mooring of the Burger King boat. I have no idea what they're doing down there. They're probably looking for the Burger King barge, but at this point, the bridge appears to be shut down, although we did see a lot of traffic that was already on 70 over the bridge. Just the ramp was shut down.
Well, the earlier pictures we saw of the Burger King vessel wedged under the Poplar Street Bridge must have given those motorists who were on the bridge about 40 minutes ago or so a real jar, because it is a big, big vessel.
And we, I believe this is the same barge that we were talking about. You and Larry were down by the riverfront, and there was an electrical fire on the boat.
There was an electrical fire, and as we said earlier, there were some reports from some people in the Adams Mark Hotel who have a good view there of an electrical-like explosion which occurred just before the Burger King and the Minesweeper inaugural and the helicopter pad broke loose. Looks like the Burger King vessel has been corralled, but the Minesweeper and the helicopter pad, as we reported, were last seen passing Arsenal. That means those two elements have moved downstream and are headed south.
Julius, of course, as we continue to watch these pictures, we're trying to find out exactly what's being done with those vehicles down south. We do know the Coast Guard was calling up more tugs to try to grab them. The concern would be, of course, if they really get awry, especially around the River des Peres area near that tank farm. I mean, that's the last thing we need, is to have another crisis on top of what they've been battling down there. As we look at you can tell the structure torn out on the Burger King, the upper structure obviously torn off as it hit the superstructure of the bridge. You can clearly tell the debris that is on the deck down below. The tug, you have to give credit to that pilot of that tugboat holding it steady and trying to maintain control of it in this fast current. Again, remember, all navigation of barge traffic has been shut down on the Mississippi for weeks because, one, the current and the threat of barge traffic breaking levees, and two, the danger of operating under bridges with the water now so high when you have very little room to pass under. We had been concerned earlier, of course, about the minimal crew that might have been working on the Burger King at this hour, because we do know they've been basically keeping folks on board to sustain power, watching over these boats, even though they can't take any traffic. You can see a spotlight from the rear of the Burger King now also, so another tug is moving into position trying to help out. And again, the Coast Guard has dispatched and called for more tugs to move to some of the boats that are still secured along the St. Louis riverfront to make sure that they do remain secured. As Julius mentioned a moment ago, it's hard to tell if, you know, the sudden drop of the river today with that levee break around Monroe, the river at the St. Louis riverfront dropped almost a foot for a period of time today and then began to come back up. And, of course, the strain on the cables holding it, the up and down and the constant pressure and just the force of the water itself has not helped the situation. I'm looking to that one side. It appeared that we had some kind of a splash in the water there. I don't know if that's debris coming off or what that was. I hope you can appreciate the fact that our pilot and our photographer are perilously close in some cases to these power lines that stretch across and the bridge. So we're advising them, obviously, to use full caution. The concern, again, for the Poplar Street Bridge at the last report is that they had indeed started closing off the St. Louis side to shut down traffic. I assume, therefore, that it's been closed on the other side at this point. Curious, as we look at this, you can see the damage where it's just ripped off the top of the Burger King.
It really has done a lot of damage, and we are just getting reports that tugboats have indeed caught up with the helicopter pad and the Minesweeper inaugural, and they were corralled near the Corps of Engineers headquarters on the river near Arsenal. So they did float down.
They were able to intercept,
free.
yeah.
But they have corralled them. As you mentioned, we certainly don't want either one of those three elements, the helicopter pad, the Minesweeper, or the Burger King boat, to get near those propane gas tanks farther down the river in South St. Louis.
It's possible that the other two went by, assuming they didn't hit a bridge abutment or support, which they might have, and then struck a glancing blow and kept going. But they're lower in profile than the Burger King, so it's possible that the height of the river helped lodge the Burger King up under the Poplar Street Bridge and was holding it there. Now, of course, how long it would have held until a towboat could grab it, you know, is a very delicate issue because you're looking at wood frame up against the steel force of the bridge.
But
and
that
again,
would have jarred any
Sure.
traffic on that
Sure.
bridge. Anything hitting it of that size. That's a big vessel, and